Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is 5/16. It's what day is it? It's Thursday, May 16th. Let's try that again. 2024. And you are listening and watching the dailyaishow live. I second guessed myself there for a second. I was like, what day is it? Today we have Beth, Jyunmi, Andy, Eran. I'm Brian. And today we are talking about, if you happen to see our splash screen there, is Google the actual AI leader right now? Are they the ones well out in front? Have they, amended for past experiences in terms of in terms of past missteps as far as putting out Bard and it not really landing the way it was, and then of course they put out some super slick demos along the way that have really made people think, yeah, is that it? But they had a 2-hour IO announcement, the conference, if you will, on Tuesday, where they talked about AI. They joked about it at the end. They talked about AI 120 plus times. It really was the full focus of this IO event, and they went over a lot, way more than we could possibly cover in the next 30 to 35 minutes. But we wanted to talk about some of the things that stood out to us, and what we think this means as far as the future of AI, and also, hey man, we got the whole 7. We got everybody here. Actually,
all 7. Holy crap!
Robert and Karl just walked in as well, so we have all 7 of us here today. It's always exciting when we do. So let's kind of dig into it. I know, Eran, right before we went live, you're like, man, I'm kind of excited to talk about this. I am too. I know Karl's going to have a few things to say about Google as well. We'll cue the angry Canadian here soon, but he's already shaking. He's already shaking his head. But before we get to Karl and all the things he will tell us about Google, I'm sure. Eran, why don't you kind of kick things off for us, man, and tell us, like, kind of what got you excited about what you saw?
Okay, so it was obviously, I'm looking at it primarily from the marketer's perspective, and I didn't watch the whole conference until yesterday, so I was kind of a day behind, and I had to run it at 1.25 speed to get through it. But from a marketing perspective, I was pretty blown away with a lot of the stuff. So we'd come from to set the background, it says we'd come from ChatGPT's update, the OpenAI launch, which everyone was going, wow, that's amazing, that's cool, yada, yada, yada. And, it's been a bit of an in joke for us, all of us, that Google's kind of dropping the ball and not really doing getting things right. But that IO thing for me was a big, wow, don't count Google out moment. They had so many cool things in there. Now, whether it all comes to fruition, of course, is the big unknown. Right? We don't know what's going to happen. Google's famous amongst they're famous promising and giving really flash demonstrations and then dropping the ball later on. But if half of what they say comes to fruition, I think it's going to make a huge difference. In fact, it inspired me to write a real blog post. I haven't done one for a while. It took me hours to write the damn thing, and I think I said to you guys, there's 3 lines in there that are AI. The rest of it I wrote myself, and it was really about, clickbaity as it may be, the title was, has Google killed SEO in 2024?
I love that. Yeah, that's I want to read your podcast or your blog now.
No, right. Whoa,
post it in the comments.
Guys, we've got a recording error showing up in the bottom. Anyway, I'll keep going. So the bottom line is that I looked at it and said, Google's risk has always been, with AI being built into their platform, it's going to cannibalize their paid search product, which is their money bringer. I mean, they make almost $500,000 US a minute from Google AdWords. So don't think that that's not a big money winner. But looking at it now, I see the big opportunity moving forward is that what this may actually allow Google to do is to maybe not get rid of it, but push SEO into a lower stratosphere so that it's not as important to people. Because like it or not, SEO has always been something that Google's not really like. It causes lots of hassles for them with people trying to game the system and get to the top of the thing. And, there's lots of comments about the pills and pawns websites out there trying to game Google, and it still happens. But if Google can get rid of SEO and still have people wanting to turn up and use their paid ads, they have a license to print money, and I kind of think that's where they're going. So, as I said, I wrote a blog post about it. We can put the link up somewhere later on. That's fine. But, for me, that was the big thing, was they've got so much cool stuff coming in. I think it's going to potentially revolutionize the marketing space, at least, both from the organic and the paid ads side. So I'm really excited to see where this goes.
What's interesting that you say that, and I'm a big agreeer of that they're changing the search. So they've recognized that search is being changed or modified based on how you say attacked by the OpenAI's models, and the Chat GPT models are attacking a lot of where you go for Google for recently. But what was very interesting, I think Karl probably agree with me, is they show us all this smoke and mirrors. They show us all this great stuff about what it's going to be doing. But what they don't show us is what it will cost to put your brand in the middle of that, right? So if somebody's taking a video of their broken record player and they ask Google through the video search function that they announced that what's wrong with it, and the links that show you how to fix it come from websites that monetize parts that you sell to record players, right? So I'm going through a long thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that record player company, parts company, how did they get shown on that thing? They're going to have to pay. That's an ad. And I agree with you, Aaron. Google hates SEO. They've said it for years. The SEO is gaming the system and they don't like it. So they want to reclaim their ad revenues. So OpenAI and ChatGPT have attacked it. Now their answer to it is, let's redefine search. Let's change it up a little bit. And generative AI and SGE and whatnot. And I've said this for 10 months because we're in the, WSI's in the marketing game, and I have digital marketers all over the world. And we're telling them, what are you doing to get in front of this so that your clients are still relevant on the web, and a lot of it is first party data. It's getting, your brand in non SEO type of gamesmanship, But anyway, my point is that at the end of the day, what you're seeing with Google search, we don't know how they're going to charge for this. We don't know how you're going to be as a company or a business going to be able to jump into that search mechanism. And then of course, as you said earlier, this is all smoke and mirrors. Who knows what it's actually real? When you start playing around with it, you realize it doesn't work. So I'm very cynical. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Well, setting aside the business model evolution.
I agree with what you said there, Robert. I think the thing to understand is that they're going to use Google Ads are going to become more and more necessary, because a lot of the top of funnel and the answer type stuff that people would currently go to Google for and then have to wander off and search for 10 minutes, they're going to just give you that stuff in the search engine, and people aren't going to have to go looking for it. So that's going to get rid of a lot of marketing that people might currently pay for. And then what will happen is, the example I gave in my blog post was, if you want to rank for, best accountant in Perth, for example, where I live, then you currently have to run ads. You currently have to run ads, and that's going to become more and more important. But if you want to rank for, like, there's a suburb in Perth called Subiaco. If you want to rank for best accountant Subiaco, you will absolutely have to become an advertiser. Which means they're going to make money. And there's a lot, I think there's a lot of other places where they can build ad revenue in, like the example they gave of putting together the shopping list, and then you just click add to cart and it puts everything in the shopping list and you buy it. That's going to be a service they're going to start selling people. So there will be other places that will make money with ads that I think are a little bit different than what we're used to with the normal search ads as well.
Okay, so let me talk just a moment about what their advances in search are. I mean, we've been seeing search generative experience, which is including, text generation, summarization, but what they announced at I/O was called AI Overview. So now instead of, adding a generative component to a normal keyword type search, this has multi-step reasoning capabilities, and it can plan and deliver. And eventually, I think you'll see that this is going to be an agentic type of operation within the Google services that you have in your browser or if you're using Gmail, etc., it'll start to integrate across those multiple services. So we talked in previous shows about the encroachment that Perplexity and others have by adding generative AI, or adding browsing and citation to generative AI. I think Google with Overview takes this a step further by creating this multi-step thinking process, collecting from lots of different resources, not just a crawler from the web, but in fact, Google has an index that covers a lot of other things than just the web pages on the internet, and knows a lot about you. So I think that this is going to be one of the places you see agents emerge.
Keep in mind that it's just a rebranding. AI Overviews is just the SGE. They just didn't want to call it something. But yeah, it's the same thing that they've been beta testing for the last, I don't know,
I'm not convinced of that, Robert. I don't think so. I think because of the reasoning capability, I think that what they're proposing here is that Overview is different from SGE.
Well, I mean, I think when you, for the last 10 months, they've been beta testing it. They've been testing it to people who have access and have opted into the alpha of SGE. And so there's different versions that they were testing. So even my experiences, it would behave differently depending on what searches I did. So maybe to your point, its full iteration wasn't deployed in alpha. Once they've put all the pieces together, what you're seeing is the full product. So I would agree there might be not the same thing, but it is the culmination of their efforts over the last 10 months in alpha testing, is my opinion. And using it right now, it behaves the same way as SGE, and they just had a branding at the top, because Google loves their branding.
Well, I do want to throw in really quick, because I want to hear what everybody else says too. But I do be real quick, because this can be easily like sort of a bashing Google, whatever. But there are a couple of things. One that they announced specifically on Tuesday that work right now, and they work very good, very well. So I want to talk about those super quick. Now, Andy, you were just talking about the AI overview. They used to call that SGE. And so what that looks like is just at the top. I kind of threw it up on the screen while you were talking, but you can see here, let me go back up to that screen. Here we go, where they now have the AI overview. There's just a simple search. So this isn't the big semantic search they were talking about. This is just still keyword based. But what are topographic maps? I can imagine my daughter may be asking this question of Google or whatever. She's doing homework on it. And you get, now it's called AI overview at the top. And it gives us a quick summary here. It gives us a couple different places that we can go and dig in and learn more, which I imagine these are also down below. And then I expanded this. It normally, I think, looks a little bit shorter like this. So I know it's covering quite a bit of the first US GC Gov, search result. But I do love that this works. And I've been using this for a long time as part of Google Labs. It was just called SGE, and now they're calling it AI Overview. I think this is a great first step. Now, another one I want to mention really quick that works right now, and it's just like, I'm not saying it's innovative necessarily, because it's just like what Microsoft has had out for a long time with Bing Chat, is now you can pull up by hitting the G at the top of your screen. You can now pull up this side, which you guys are not seeing, as a matter of fact. Sorry about that. It's not pulling up the side menu. Well, for whatever reason, when I'm sharing my screen, it's not showing that. It must be pulling as a side menu. I'd have to do the whole window. But regardless, on the right side of the screen, there's a now like search results. So you can quickly summarize any page that you're on. Again, you've been able to do this in Microsoft Edge browser for a while, like over a year now. But Google now has that in there. And the last one I want to share really quick, and it's my favorite, is the notebooklm, which they announced on Tuesday. This worked right out of the box. This is by far my favorite Google tool that has come out, and it's actually really good from what I can tell. So basically the idea here is, maybe for education or otherwise, you would upload your sources on the left-hand side. So naturally I thought, wow, we have transcripts for 200 plus episodes. Let's start there. Well, it told me I capped out at 89 or 79 seemed to be the upper limit of text files. So I'll have to do some truncating and bringing things down. But regardless, you can see right here. So my question was, help me understand Andy's main point of view. Now, in this particular example, there's just 35 resources. So a small subset of all of our shows. But you can imagine if I had all 200 transcripts in here in a different format or combined together, what you're getting is it's coming back and giving me some Andy highlights. What says Andy's perspective on AI centers on its evolutionary nature, participating particularly in applications like chatbots, the strategic considerations involved in their development and deployment. That's from those 35 shows. But again, we could expand that easily out to 200. So then it gives me a couple of bullet points on there. And Andy, you can tell us whether you think this is right or not. But then it gives us really nice citations here at the bottom. So not only is it giving me a summary, but it's giving me a very quick way to then go to any one of the citations and pull in where it's pulling the source guide. It's going to tell me, the summary to it, where it pulled in the information, what the show is about. I mean, guys, this stuff is really cool. Then when did Robert push back, right? We got to know when Robert throws the pushback in there. So it says the provided source documents do not mention a specific time when Robert pushed back, which I find maybe not in these 35. But again, if we go into the citations, which you're going to find pretty quickly, is that there are, in fact, we get a little like summary here. There are, in fact, it comes in and talks about when somebody said something like, oh, I'm going to push back against Robert, or, I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to push back a little bit. So it absolutely brought in 10 different resources and citations for us of when the term pushback really came in. Now, some people might call this overly simple. Oh, it's just doing data retrieval, blah, blah, blah. You know what? They announced it on Tuesday and it worked on Tuesday. So I know there's...
Wait. I have to interrupt you there.
Go for it.
What you're showing is notebooklm, and it's been an experiment for a long time, and I've been using it for a while, like months. So what they showed yesterday goes another step beyond that, and it's not available yet. You're not seeing it yet. And what it is they demonstrated this incredible thing, which was the guy loads up all of these resources, and what you demonstrated and what he started with was, okay, this is, looking at my data. I'm going to put my data in this notebooklm, and now I can ask questions about it. I can talk to my data. This is one of the things, sort of the key value propositions that we as consultants provide to corporations is here. We're going to put a system together that gives you all your corporate data, and now you can use a conversational interface to access it. notebooklm makes that very easy for you to do it with any collection of data. With limits in terms of the size of the data you can upload. What they showed in the demo at I/O was, some kind of audio interaction with it. And the guy then creates a podcast between two characters that are talking about the subject of the documents. That's not available yet. And we haven't seen it yet. So it works out of the box, but not what they showed yet.
Right.
So
fair enough.
But and I'm looking forward to doing something with that because it's getting very close to a conversational, intelligent tutor on any subject you can upload an enormous quantity of data to.
And you can
see. Speaking of pushback, Brian,
go for it.
Speaking of pushback on your point there, so I have a different experience with notebooklm. Yes, the content of the sources I use, because I use the transcripts as well, because I wanted to do my experiment, but I used the transcripts that were specifically with our time codes, our timestamps on there. I had to teach notebooklm what a timestamp was, how to recognize it, where it would be in the document, and how a timestamp equals the word runtime. I had to go through all of that process before it would give me one. And then I had to explain how to average the timestamps from the documents. And then when it showed me its process, it did actually do it. It still got them wrong because it didn't read the timestamps correctly. So while the context and the meaning, that's what it's probably trained on. But when I was trying to ask for specific information from the documents, it wasn't very forthcoming.
I think my answer to that, and then I want to get into the other stuff because there's just one of so many, Google things.
Oh, yeah.
But just my quick response to that is my guess with that, because I agree with you, Jyunmi. That's a limitation for sure. And Andy, what you were saying is the impression I get is that it really is at its core sort of a simple information retrieval. It's actually very good at it. I love the citations. That makes my life so easy, especially if you had tons of notes and you were researching, like writing a dissertation or something. Oh my goodness, if I was like going for a PhD, this would be amazing. But I agree with you. What it seems to be missing is a little bit of actually the language model. If it had a little bit more of Gemini in there, I would imagine, 1.5 Pro, I'm thinking you don't have to do that, Jyunmi. And that'll be curious to like, maybe that's what they were showing, Andy, and there was more of the language model in it. And so it was able to process, use Gemini 1.4 or maybe even Ultra, and it's able to then convert it into audio. Then it's, truly do multimodal. So I guess what we're seeing is like the foundation. And I agree with you, Jyunmi. Like if you needed to do something above and beyond or train it on it, it's probably does. I could see that why it would fall flat. Hopefully, that is in fact, going back to what Andy said, part of what this next iteration would be. I hope so. So I was wrong about notebooklm. It was new to me. I had not seen it before, but super cool tool nonetheless, for what it is, as long as you're okay with, your expectations of what it can produce back to you. It isn't Gemini, it's a little different than that. Okay. Much more to cover here.
Beth.
So Flash is available in the back end, what I refer to the back end, right? So for Google, that's Google AI Studio. Flash was immediately available. It is available. It also has 1 million context window, and I did not do the transcript test, but I surely will soon, because you will be able to upload all of the transcripts because it will be less than 1 million tokens to do so, and it will automatically have Gemini because that's what it is. That's what you're uploading the stuff to.
Right.
Flash seems interesting to me. I am unsure that I have a need for it. Like, I'm trying to figure out how I would test Flash. And really, it's so that, like for things that you need an immediate response for something like a customer service bot or maybe even an audio, right? Like a multimodal audio communication back and forth. So I haven't tested Flash, but I did see that I have access to it.
I think that what you're leading into, Beth, is well, when you mentioned the 1 million and then possibly 2 million context window, and Sundar Pichai kind of leading into the topic of, I think context windows is going to be a thing in the past, and this is hopefully a good thing, because I think the biggest problem a lot of people have with the generative AI now is memory. Like her can't be a real thing because she'll forget who you are after a couple of days if you're talking to her a lot, right? That the concept of a assistant AI that you're talking to all the time, right? So I think that they're on the cusp of the technology being able to have perpetual memory. And so having this 1 million, then 2 million, then what is it, 20 million? Then I think that's all that, whatever the technology they're doing in order to increase that token context, I think is going to be the same technology that's going to lead into our full-blown memory. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I think you're conflating two things. One is memory, which is in runtime during the session.
No, I
context
meant memory of the actual bot. So I meant context.
Right. So that's context, right? And so 1 million context window. And by the way, going back to Google's one of Google's main marketing messages in I/O was, we have the largest context window for inference of anybody in the world.
Right.
And it's not only 1 million, it's going to 2 million right away. So they're going to make it possible for you in a single session to upload an enormous amount of context, and that will process effectively through that thing. Now, why do people reduce context windows? Maybe part of that is that their models haven't been trained on how to operate effectively against a very large corpus of inference data in real time in context learning. So now memory across multiple sessions is not something that's going to be done by the foundation model itself. That's always going to have to be part of a larger architecture that retains information and then delivers it back to the assistant at the time of inference. So I just wanted to make that distinction. The larger context windows have to do with how much can you put in right now and stream through the deep neural network. And
my assertion is that they're going to eventually come together. Like they're going to get to a context window that's so big,
that implies
you need an infrastructure that has to add that particular memory element to it. That's right. What I'm reading into Sundar Pichai's.
And I think you're right that there's going to be memory, But I think architecturally, it's always going to be outside the deep neural network, because otherwise you're having to tune and train a specific instance of the deep neural network with your particular information.
Yeah,
And
that's what
those
it's
things are
doing.
okay, go ahead.
I truly
Which
think
is
that's where it's
what-
going.
Which is what is happening with OpenAI, right? In our Slack, Brian posted a very funny comment about asking a question, and it responded with some very significant thumper-esque kind of response. And Brian's comment to that was, "Ooh, I need to go and edit my memory," because OpenAI is building the memory of what you like and what kind of questions you ask. So yeah, there's a like, yay that memory is a thing and that might happen, but it does create this second thing about what are you teaching it just by interacting with it, and do you then need to go and prune it afterwards?
I do want to jump in and kind of go a little bit to the more Project Astra, because I think that has, if you combo that with GPT-4o, and I think that like the ramifications of it, because we know Meta, we know Anthropic, we know open source will have these things that are going to come out in their version or another. And to me, that has much bigger implications. I wrote a little bit about implications for web infrastructure, but I also think like how people interact with applications, software, but also how that software and how those applications need to be rebuilt, or new ones that will be built to facilitate that interaction with those agents that are coming. Because I don't think today, currently, a lot of our systems obviously is not optimized to interact with an agent, or like the funny one was the Bumble CEO who was joking about, your dating concierge is going to meet with the dating agent and they're going to figure everything out, and then you just go meet people. And while she was joking, I was like, well, if you take that outside of the dating realm and put it to everywhere else, to me, that's going to come closer than anything, because all these tools are available to you. And instead of me, so Eran, you led the show with SEO. I was like, yeah, I could manually do that myself, but what if I just ask my agent to do that for me? Then I don't have to worry about that. Then I can do something else, which that concept alone, when you say SEO is dead, I was like, it doesn't matter, because something else is doing it for me, and it will go off and find things, and then maybe another agent can facilitate it. So what I'm hoping is a lot of people building and a lot of software applications and SaaS and wherever it is.
What's your vision of Astra, Karl?
I'm not sure, even though like the joke is it's in Canada, I won't probably see it for another year, but it won't matter, because everyone will get some version of it in some platform. Most likely I'll probably get it in OpenAI first before Google. Cool. Doesn't matter. I think that the big world application is you can see, do, and your agent can do all of it for you. And then, so what does that mean? And to me, that's the bigger news out of everything here is you got Astra, 4o, whatever else is coming, and these things can do it. And you're talking about, Andy, on search, it wants to Google for you, right? But like, okay, that's great. But then my agent can tap into that and do that for me. So all these things, I'm just seeing they're all being built for something to do it for you, which is, I thought that was just fascinating, and where we're going, and faster than I ever thought. And
It's a big step to AGI, it sounds like. Yeah.
And in terms of SEO, is it now SAO, right? Are you optimizing for a search agent versus a search engine, which is going to be appealing to human interaction? What does that change?
Yeah, I think like you have to start thinking about, is my place where my business is, can it be referenced by an agent and by a human? And the next thing is, should I have agent receptacles or an agent itself to meet the agent to help it out? Like, what does that mean for how we interact and engage online, period? And I think that is, to me, the bigger aspects of.
I think you stumbled on exactly what's going to happen. Agents answering agents. You're 100%. That's where it's going. I definitely think this.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people are looking at the specific tools, but I'm not sure if Sundar, if Sam, to a point Zuckerberg, Dario, I don't know if this is their end game. Like this, part of AGI is this. They're like, haha, you fools, you're all talking about like all this tiny little tools that we're building, but on the higher level, this is what we're truly trying to do. And to me, it just, the pieces are falling into place one after the other.
Right.
Search, connectors, like everything is just falling piece by piece. And yes, we can use them individually, but there's a point where our agent can do all of it, which is even more fascinating.
We're seeing the building blocks, is what you're saying, and I agree.
Yeah, I really think we're seeing the building blocks of what something is coming for us individually.
Well, I mean, Sam's unapologetic about it. He says it bluntly every time we talk. We're building AGI. We're building it for the future. We're changing whatever. So yeah, he's unapologetic about it, but clear.
So the other part of that is for the benefit of humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the end of the sentence.
Well, I think, like, to me, that Bumble CEO, when that person said it, I just thought, okay, maybe from an optimistic perspective, that if a lot of the stuff we do online, if that can be done by an agent, maybe we'll spend more time offline. So our agent does all the grunt stuff that we take a lot of our time doing, and it's more of like, hey, now we get to connect with people a little bit more. We go outside a little bit more because our agent's taking care of it and maybe does a better job than we would. And maybe that's too optimistic, but that's one way to think about it. And from the dating game, right? It's like, the more people, you'd rather meet more people, although that doesn't make sense from a dating app, because the whole point of the dating app then wouldn't you want the person to stay on, not find somebody so they're off? Like, you want them to keep paying. That makes the most sense.
Secret, Karl. That's the secret of all dating apps.
So isn't it like it's illogical that these things exist to help you? Because I don't think it should. That's not, if I was the CEO, like, no, how do we get these people to ensure that they keep spending money on our app?
It's funny. I can't remember what the company was now, but there was an app where that was their actual marketing technique. Was they said, our whole goal is to get you to delete this app. And so they took the other, well, I don't know if it was a dating one, but it was a cool approach to it, which was to say, like, hey, let's call it the elephant in the room. Like, if we do our job, you'll delete this app when you're done. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool, I wish I could remember the company that did that, but
they don't exist anymore. So they did too good of a job.
Yeah. They're probably in the business is why I can't remember them. Nobody else knows what I'm talking about right now.
I want to make a point about OpenAI and Google, one day followed by the next. And what we saw in each of these demonstrations is the convergence on natural voice interactions, audio interactions with the large language models. And that's, I think, the most compelling advancement. And, I guess the lesson from that should be that these are available on your phone right now, not in the sophisticated manner that the LLMs responded in these demonstrations, but you can talk to ChatGPT on your phone. I believe I don't have Gemini. I have an iOS phone. Gemini, the app, is not available on iOS. Yeah, they say it is, but I can't find it in the App Store. So I'm thinking that it's one of these release issues again. But try playing with voice interaction with the LLMs. Try to get into a natural conversation. The models that have been demonstrated, 4.0 and now Gemini, are really, really going to be impressively natural and clever in their conversation with you, with very low latency, And that means, they're going to be able to respond naturally. You're going to be able to interrupt them and have a smooth conversation just as if it were a human.
Did anybody notice how they pivoted pretty fast on the rumor mills? Like the rumor mills leading up to Monday was, oh, OpenAI is going to announce their search model.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden they dropped it because Google, they got, in my opinion, they got wind that Google's search conversation was going to be much more impressive than they didn't want to be trumped. So they pulled that off the docket and they shared, I think, because I mean everybody was saying it was going to be what they were coming out with, and even
those transcripts are available days, if not weeks, before they go. Something like an IO, that's a lot of content that they have to rehearse and do. So it wouldn't surprise me if that stuff gets leaked from one company to another. There's so many people who work for both who don't mind, whatever. It wouldn't. I'm sure OpenAI knew exactly what was going to come out in IO, perhaps even a week earlier or something like that. It just seems really tough to protect that kind of production or whatever. Sure. Also, OpenAI's was a much, you really can't compare them. It was a much smaller event, obviously. Boutique. It was designed differently. It was called the spring update. This is something we've heard Sam talk about. Sam wasn't even there. It was Mirat doing it. And so, it's two different releases, obviously, both important, both showing some of the same, pushes in towards more multimodal, more voice activated stuff we've been talking about for a while. The more things change, the more things stay the same. And in this case, we, like everybody's saying on the show, there's a push right towards AGI, and these are incremental steps along the way, and they're going to roll out little by little. I don't think people will naturally really even think about AI in their search. As far as a Google search goes, I just think in time they're going to go like, oh, that's cool. You actually can put in more words now, and I can kind of just ramble, or I can just talk to it and tell it a whole sentence worth of stuff, and it'll figure out what to go search for and give me back the results. Oh, that's pretty cool. And I think that's about as far as that's going to go. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be thinking about what happened under the hood per se. We care, but if you just get to the end user, it's just going to be a better Google search. And well, we've seen many iterations of that over 20 years.
So just quick, the thing that like made my eyes go wide and is totally not available yet, and we hope it will work when it comes. But the idea that you could say, go into my Gmail, pull my receipts for April, put them in a spreadsheet, and then do some calculation on it. That was like, okay, that is 100% useful. Whether you're an employee in a large organization or you're a solopreneur, small business owner, like that is, yes, that saves me time. That's super helpful.
I do feel Microsoft Build, I have like it just naturally that the Copilot will match whatever, like those two things. I think forget who's doing it. It's just cool that in a year, 6 months, all of us will be able to do those things, right? And not have to like find stuff that like, what email, where did I put that? Like, that's really, I think it's just, to me, it was really neat because then you can see both of these companies with Microsoft and so on, everything that we'll be doing. I think one of the coolest things I heard from another Sam Altman interview, I forgot who he's on with, like Logan Barrett, I think. He was saying how like he had his phone open the entire time. Instead of opening another tab, he would just ask while working. Or imagine your desktop always on and you can just ask against that and then have that real-time interaction without having to take those extra steps. Like imagine all of us having those capabilities, whatever tool, like Google, open it, which doesn't matter. Imagine having that just 10x's our productivity. But I think now is just, we have to educate everybody else who didn't watch any of these things. Cause even though we think everybody did, right? Like it's such a small amount. Most of the people I talk to, like, what? Like, oh,
this is going to require massive upskilling too. Massive upskilling.
It has to. What we saw, and I think that's the point, is we have built off all the skills that we already have from AI over the past year because we're into it. Imagine that person who kind of gets it, will get 4.0, GPT, whatever, but we have to let them know, hey, you can do this. And it's like, most people won't know to to download the ChatGPT Mac app, to download whatever Astra comes in. Like it's not going to be natural. So what does that mean for everybody else who is not geeking out on this stuff?
Yeah. Well, okay, we're gonna leave it there because we knew there's no way we could cover everything in IO, and it was a 2-hour event. And honestly, we didn't even get to some of the stuff I thought we would talk about, like some of their medical stuff. So what we'll do is I think we'll have a whole other show, maybe talking about we'll broaden it out to just a new medical advancements. We've done this a few times, but there's always something new to talk about. We'll talk about some of the stuff that Google and DeepMind. I think we could have a whole show about just DeepMind, to be frank. There's so much going on in just that department of it'd be like having a whole show just about YouTube advancements. To say Google, well, it's Alphabet, right? And there's all sorts of different things they have going on that are pretty cool, like Astra. So we'll leave it there and we'll get into that. Tomorrow, we're going to be, we don't want to leave Anthropic out of this. We've talked a lot this week about OpenAI. We've talked a lot this week about Google, obvious for good reason. But actually, Anthropic's doing some really cool things as well. They have something called the console that's actually pretty cool. And we want to sort of give our honest review of us messing around with it and tell you what we think about it and where it could potentially have an impact in your day-to-day business use cases. So that'll be on tomorrow's show. Appreciate everybody being. It's nice to see everybody's face today and have all 7 of us here. Thanks to everybody in the audience. Thanks, Jen. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Till then.
Aloha.